You don't need God to explain gratitude and meaning. That's exactly what Susan Blackmore is saying to Jordan Peterson, and he goes ahead and just dismantles her. Without further ado, let's get into the video itself. You guys are in for a big one, trust me.
Nothing to do with any religious basis at all. I recognise that I could not come on the train here, have a really interesting discussion, meet Justin again, have a nice glass of cool water, without a load of other people doing it for me. That gratitude, which is one of the things that you quite rightly put into your book, it gives good place to it, and it's very important. That doesn't come from anything religious, unless you say because I was brought up a Christian it came from there, but I don't base it on that anymore.
What do you think it comes from?
Good question.
I think it comes from a recognition that I've done a lot of meditation. I've meditated every day for 30 years, and I think this has something to do with it. But it's observing the inner consequences of different ways of confronting the world. And I'm much more in recent years in the habit of waking up in the morning, even if it's raining in January in England, and looking out and going, oh, and it's a feeling of gratitude, not gratitude towards God or towards anybody or anything, just free-floating gratitude. That seems to have a positive consequence. I set the day up better, and it's kind of self-perpetuating. It pops up again and again.
Do you think you can just have gratitude in general, or must gratitude always be given towards something and ultimately God?
That's a good question. That goes back to our discussion about acting things out. Like, gratitude is something you feel towards something. And you can say, well, I don't feel it towards anything in particular. And I would say, all right, well, the diffuse nothing that you feel it towards serves in your psychological hierarchy as your equivalent of God.
No, but it's gratitude. This morning, for example, I looked out and it was so green. We've had frosts and it's been white the last few days, and it was green this morning, and it was just gratitude to the universe, if you like. It's not really God because it's not a creator, it's not anything I can pray to. I know.
Why feel gratitude towards it then?
I don't know, but I find
that's fine.
I know that you tackle in this book that happiness is not an ultimate good, and I struggle this way.
It's just not an ultimate goal.
Oh, okay,
I didn't say it wasn't an ultimate
all
good.
All right, okay.
Big difference.
There's a big difference between those things.
You're right. You picked me up correctly on that. Nevertheless, we are happiness-seeking creatures, and I have found through practice and growing older that acting gratitude, thinking gratitude, feeling gratitude makes me happier and seems to rub off on other people.
So I don't think we are happiness-seeking creatures, and I think it's a low goal. Not because there's something wrong with being happy, because, thank God if you get to be happy now and then. But I don't think that that's what we seek. I think we seek a meaning that's deep enough to sustain us through tragedy. And that is way different.
Do you know, when I hit tragedy is too strong a word, I think. But when horrible things happen to me, or I feel, or I read some terrible thing going on in the world, yes, those are tragedies going on in the world, my response is, nothing matters. It's all empty and meaningless. This is how the world is. Get used to it. Get on with it, girl.
That sounds like a very Zen Buddhist way of dealing. I guess it is. Meaning.
Well, it's a paradoxical way, though. Because paradoxical. The first part of that is nihilistic, and the second part isn't. So how do you reconcile those two things? Why get on with it, girl?
Because well, here's another thing. I've often done this with my students. Let's suppose you become nihilistic. Nothing matters. There's no point in doing it. I think we live in a pointless universe. What are you going to do? And I say to them, like William James in his wonderful thing about getting up in the morning, but that's a slightly different point that he makes there. But I say to them, okay, tomorrow morning, when you wake up, think it's all pointless. There's no point in doing anything. Now, what are you going to do? Well, actually, you're going to need to go to the loo. You're going to get out of bed and you're going to go to the bathroom. And when you're there, you'll think, actually, I'm hungry. I think I want to go down to the kitchen. I probably should put my slippers on. Why don't I get dressed? You go and have something to eat. And then you think, I'm bored. And you go to university and go into your lectures. And, we are not creatures who will just not do anything. To me, to go through that process, which I've done in the past a lot, and it's just natural now, is a very positive way of living. To accept the meaningless and ultimate emptiness of everything, and accept that this creature here, this thing, this evolved creature just will get on with life.
But you're not accepting the meaninglessness of it, even by going through those actions that you described.
You don't think so?
Not at all,
because
you're acting as if those things are meaningful.
Yes, I am. I'm acting as though those things are
meaningful. Are you pretending that they're meaningful?
Pardon?
Are you pretending that they're meaningful?
No, I'm not pretending. I'm my way of putting it would be that those meanings are constructed by myself and others.
They're personal
and they're
meanings rather than...
because of the kind of creatures we are, because of the meme
But they're not
plexes,
constructed.
I'd like to hear
Hunger
Jordan's
isn't
response to this.
constructed. Neither is your desire to use the loo. None of that's constructed.
No, but the fact that there is a loo is part of culture.
Yeah, well, thank God for that.
Yeah.
But see...
Oh, you thank God, would you, for that? Sorry, that's a poor joke.
Well, you see, so imagine this. You have the proximal meanings that you described that are sort of a priori, right?
Yep.
They're handed to you. You might consider them as needs or drives, although they're not. They're personalities. That's not the right way of conceptualizing them. But then there's the intermingling of all those needs and drives, let's say, and that constitutes a new layer of structure, because it isn't just that you have to eat and that you have to use the washroom and that you have to have something to drink and that you have to be warm enough or cool enough to survive. It's that you have to do all those things at the same time in a situation where you're going to have to propagate that across time, and you're going to have to do it with a bunch of other people. Yep. And it's always been like that. And so what that means is that out of those proximal meanings, higher meanings arise. And you might say, well, those meanings are arbitrary, and I would think those are religious meanings.
I wouldn't say they are arbitrary, but I would say they were constructed. It's very interesting. Reading your book...
What do you mean by constructed?
Well, they are a consequence of mimetic evolution, of the language that people are brought up in, the culture they live in, the arguments they have. I mean,
what about the biology that they're given?
Well, we start with the biology, and the memes build on top of that.
The memes are biology too.
Well, by definition, they are, well...
See, this is the thing.
I would follow Dawkins in saying, well, talk about genes as biology, talk about memes as culture. That's all I meant by dividing that. But let me say this.
Yeah, but I don't accept that division.
But I want to get back to what we're saying about meaning. Reading your book made me think a lot about what you mean by meaning, and your claim that we should have a meaningful life or strive for a meaningful life, that meaningfulness is important. And I kept asking myself, do I live that way? What meanings does my life have? And, if I think of something like, well, most of my striving goes into writing my books. And is that meaningful? And again, I have the same response when I ask myself that question. It's just what this body does. Then
you should listen to the body and stop listening to the thing that's criticizing it.
And what would the body say?
It would say, write your book and try to be as clear as you possibly can about it.
That's what I do. And that's exactly what I do.
What I said at the beginning is that the atheist types act out a religious structure and criticize it.
No, there's no religious structure. We come to this big question now.
Let me get to this question, because I did want to get to this, because you have a fascinating part in your book, Jordan, where you do say this. You're simply not addressing atheists. You say you're simply not an atheist in your actions, and it is your actions.
Or if you are, look out.
And it is your actions that most accurately reflect your religious beliefs. What do you mean by that? Why are you saying that no one is really an atheist deep down?
I didn't say no one was.
Okay.
I said that most of the people who claim to be atheists aren't. So this is why I like Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. Because Raskolnikov tried to act like an atheist, right? He took the ideas that were floating around, Dostoevsky took the ideas that were floating around in the late 1800s, which are still the ideas that we're discussing today. One most fundamental idea, I suppose, being after Nietzsche's announcement of the death of God, that if there is no God, then anything is permitted. That was Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov's the criminal in Crime and Punishment, the murderer. He gets away with his murder, technically, but not psychologically. And he decides that if there's no God, anything is permitted.
But
and
this doesn't have
to
be true. That's a person in a character in a novel. I don't think that's so.
Well, let's hear the end of that story. And what do you take away from what Dostoevsky has to say about?
Well, Dostoevsky's takeaway was that there was a moral law that Raskolnikov was breaking, even though he rationalized his way through it. Like, he committed the perfect murder, right? He murdered a woman who people would have voted to murder, and then he got away with it. And he did it for good reasons, at least reasons that he could rationalize as good. And then he got away with it, but it destroyed his soul. And Dostoevsky's right about that. And that's where Dostoevsky is so great. It's like... And this is what you're doing in your life. You're acting out the logos, Susan. That's what you're doing. You're writing books to illuminate the world.
Yes.
You say, well, I don't believe in that.
Yes, you do.
It's sad and is very, very scary, because this, ironically, this actually ties into what Satanists believe. Do thy will, or something along those Shakespearean kind of thing, but basically meaning do what you want. So if I feel like doing something that's absolutely vile, disgusting, like we're seeing in America in the schools, you know, people going up in schools and they're doing a madness to the school. If you get exactly what I'm talking about, due to the YouTube algorithm, obviously you understand. That all comes from I can do whatever I want, and it directly ties and links in with Satanism. If you think I'm not just talking, I'm not just making this up. If you actually start looking into it, you see, oh, Aleister Crowley believed in that. If you don't know who Aleister Crowley is, do your research. It directly links into Satanism. So we will actually be living in a dangerous place if anybody was just allowed to do what they want. There's a reason as to why governments are like, no, let's not go with that. Let's just put religion aside. Just governments and countries, they're like, no, there needs to be rules. There needs to be a hierarchy. Because if everybody just did what they wanted, society wouldn't function to begin with. Is what I'm saying making sense? So now if you extrapolate that, you go to a God level, universe level. If it was all meaningless, there was no rewards, good, evil, bad is all the same thing, you realize you're going to end up with some of the most vile human beings that's ever existed, that done horrific things. We're all going to end up in the same place. Some people believe there's purgatory and all this. So what? We're all... That doesn't even make sense in and of itself. So I respect myself. I live a life where I don't want to do harm. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do evil. I don't want to cause pain or take someone else's life. And then we all end up in the exact same place. Exact same place as Satan. Oh, okay, Ronny, you're okay, no problem. We all end up in the exact same place as, who can I think of? Hitler. So we all end up, everything that Hitler, we all end up, come on, man. Think about it. So we all end up in the same place as Hitler. Think of the most worst human being, the worst criminal you could ever think of. The ones that do things to the tiny ones, due to the YouTube algorithm once more. To the tiny ones. You know who I'm referring to, the tiny ones. The humans that are not yet fully activated humans. You know who I'm talking about. Those kind of people who do all sorts of heinous things. We are all going to end up the exact same place. That doesn't even make sense. You know what? I'm going to end it there. Let me know your comments in the comment section down below. Comment which video you should check out next. Obviously, it has to be a Christian debate, related debate, or Jesus debates, because that's what this channel is about. And yeah, and we'll get back to it. But smash the like button, comment, and do all of that. Link in the description is for you if you want it. God bless you.